Good Saturday morning, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. So happy to see you today. Happy after Halloween Kringle craziness. I think they definitely had enough on hand this time, and or their limitation of how many you could buy made a big difference. Because when I woke up on Friday morning, most everything was still available. I think Halloween sold out, which was that licorice one that was really being hyped a lot. I had it on my maybe list, but I'm not sure that I'm a huge black licorice person, and I just decided, I don't know. I'm not a huge Halloween person, to be honest. I did end up purchasing like 3 or 4 of them though, I think. I've got Witching Hour and the other Witch's Cauldron, and I did Red Room this year, and there was one other one, but I can't remember what it is. And I also got one of the reserve candles from the latest one, and oh, the Black Cats. I got the Black Cats one in the 3-wick, and I also got, they had a $12 sale on some of their spring summer Kringle candles, the medium ones, which is great. I love that medium. So I went ahead and got a couple of those, some of which are repurchases, and a couple of them are new-ish. So I'm really, really excited about that. So I did spend a pretty penny this morning, but I did it, and I'm really excited to have those come in. I have 5 daylights for you today. Most of them, with the exception of one, they are from the new fall release. And they are all Kringle. I did not buy any of the country ones. They were all gourmands, and they were all very lackluster. I mean, even if you're a gourmand person, if you're going to be honest, it was not impressive. And I would say that if you're a huge Kringle person and you don't like to hear any kind of negativity about the company, I would urge you to not watch this video, because I don't know that I have a whole lot of positive things to say about these 5 candles, and certainly not about the release this year in general. So if that hurts your heart, and I get it, maybe just pass on by. And I always have great things to say about Kringle sometimes too. So I'll catch you in the next one. For those of you who are still watching, this was a terrible release. Terrible. And I'm prepared to say that now. At first, I thought it's disappointing. And there were moments when I was getting some of the feedback, even from the rather enthusiastic brand ambassadors. Reading between the lines, I could tell this was not only a disappointment, but a real miss. Now that I have burned these 5, and they were the ones that I was, or 4 of them, 4 of the ones that I was the most interested in and thought, frankly, had the best chance to be decent candles, if not quite good. And now that I've burned them, I am prepared to say this is a really terrible release. And I kind of wish that we would all start being a little bit more honest about that. This happens. It's not a big deal. Like, you win some and you lose some, and this is definitely an off year for Kringle. That does not mean they're a bad company. It doesn't mean that they're morally objectionable. It frankly means that next year they are probably going to knock it out of the park. So I am already super excited about next year, because I can't imagine that they're going to have 2 years of this nonsense. And especially once they start receiving back some honest feedback, even if it's just in the way of people not repurchasing these candles, they are absolutely going to have that incentive to really make sure that the next release is up to par for their company and for, frankly, the most important season for candles in the year. This is not one that you want to fumble, frankly, and they definitely did this year. So generally speaking, I mean, before you even smelled them, or burned them. This was not a good release in terms of range. And at least one or two of the ambassadors were a little bit transparent about that and were like, hey, I would have liked to have seen a few more outdoor scents, for instance. It was, for the most part, a ton of gourmands. And they weren't even interesting gourmands for the most part. The chocolate orange one, I think, was kind of a little bit unique. But as most everybody was saying, it makes much more sense as a holiday release than it does as a fall release. Then there were ones like Cinnabuns that were like, did we not just have a cinnamon bun candle like last year? It's not only a very, I mean, it's a well-loved and kind of a standby for the gourmand candle industry, but like we've had a lot of them from Kringle, and it doesn't say fall enough, and it doesn't give us anything that's truly innovative or unique. And even if that candle is a knockout, even if it's flawless, it just is kind of unremarkable. So the gourmands that they gave were just very, very ho-hum, frankly. And the colors, oh my God. So the country line is all colored waxes. And here's a picture of the country line. I'm going to have to find a picture. Here it is. It's like 50 shades of brown. I don't know what they were thinking. This is an amateur mistake, one that Yankee would not make, one that Bath & Body Works would not make. Yes, you want more earthy autumnal colors, but there are more autumnal colors, frankly, than a sea of brown, and not very nice brown either. I mean, you need to have some reds, you need to have some crimsons, you can have some blues. It doesn't have to be a blueberry candle. Even Kringle knows this. I recently purchased, in the Christmas haul, I purchased the candy cane cashmere, whatever it was. Not literal, not red and white. It was like this beautiful, stunning teal blue, which doesn't say cashmere or candy cane, but it was stunning. Kringle knows how to do this, yet for some reason they were super literal in this country candle realm. If it was supposed to be a banana pumpkin bread, they just gave you the ugly color of a banana pumpkin bread. I mean, it was just super literal, absolutely no interest in giving us a range of like beautiful colored waxes. There should be blues, there should be greens, there can be yellows, there can even be some soft whites. Like a creamy cinnamon color, you know, like the like a milky cardamom or something. No. and it was just indicative of kind of how they approached the entire release, which was just, it looked very phoned in. It frankly did. It looked like nobody paid any attention to the fall release this year, and just kind of gave a lot of different like cakes and cookies, and it was almost as if they like gave the fall release to like their amateur marketers or something, because they were so focused on like Halloween, or they were so focused on the fantasy line with unicorn poop and all kinds of things, all of the many reserve candles that have come out. And we like to see those, like that attention and that time paid to all of those different kinds of candles, but not at the expense of your fall release. You cannot. You know, I mean, if you were to phone in like the spring release, we wouldn't love it, but you know what? We would get over it really quickly. You cannot phone in autumn and fall. You can't. Oh my God. I'm just like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them, and I'm just like, it's so bad. So bad. One of the brand ambassadors, and one of the ones that frankly I respect a great deal, said, as they were presenting them, well, this is obviously a better collection than last year's. And like, I did not know how to respond to it. And that was before I got these candles, before it became obvious that that was just self-evidently false. Let me remind you, last year's fall release was Sanctuary. If all they did in that country line was Sanctuary, if all they gave us last year was Sanctuary. It would still be better fall release than the entire range of candles that they gave us put together in this one. That Sanctuary candle was lightning in a bottle. It was brilliant. And it was in the country line. And that country line had gorgeous, it had, gorgeous and sugar pumpkins were actually in the Kringle line. In the country line, what did we have there were some lackluster ones, but I think that one had, let me look, because I even wrote them down. Autumn Reflection, Golden Path. There was like a range of things. There was a blueberry maple one, and of course, Sanctuary. There were 5 gourmands. There were 2 outdoorsy ones, which were Autumn Reflection and Golden Path, and 1 conceptual one, which was Sanctuary. And all of us, seriously, even just those 8 country candles, which were not the best of the fall release, even those 8 were better than like the 16 that we got this year, whatever else it was. In Kringle, we had sugar pumpkins, we had gorgeous, we had amber wood, we had apple love. I know people like that one. We had Velo. I reviewed Velo too. Again, it was a little bit of a miss, but at least it was brilliant. It was ambitious. There were 4 gourmands in the Sanctuary, in the Kringle line, and 4 like conceptual or outdoor candles. And like I said, Sugar Pumpkins and Gorgeous were very successful and are still very successful. And those were gourmands in the Kringle line. Like, I don't know how anybody, like with a straight face, could say that this fall release was better than the last one. I can't think of any candle that they released this year that I would want to see next year. None. With the exception possibly of Bourbon Bonfire, which is this one right here. And that is probably not a surprise to many of you who have been watching the previews and reviews and also purchasing yourself. So I apologize, close parentheses and preamble over. And I apologize for the rant. I love this company so much. And I know they can do better. We know they can do better. They did better last year. And this is just, the fall release is so important. I'm just stunned by how bad this fall release is. The spring release was far more interesting, and there were far more successes, even though the strength and throw was really lacking across the board. All right, so definitely the best of the bunch from what I can tell is Bourbon Bonfire. But real quickly, let me tell you the ones that I did pick up in daylight form, which is Bourbon Bonfire, Rosemary Apple Rita. I have Leaf Peeper, looks like this, Vineyard Harvest. And then this one is not in the fall release, but I went ahead and got Pinot Noir because I had not smelled it. And I thought it might be very similar to Vineyard Harvest, and I wanted to do a compare and contrast. So I've got those 2 as well. I have burned all of these, some of them like considerably. Caveats apply though, because these are only daylights. They really are. And so I need to say that. I mean, it is possible that if I were to get a larger candle form in any of these, that they would behave better. But probably only marginally better. I mean, I burn these in very small spaces. I shut them up in enclosed spaces. I know how daylights burn, and I know what it is that you can gather in terms of data from a daylight. Many of us go on and repurchase though on the basis of a daylight. And we're usually not disappointed or surprised by the performance of that respective candle once it arrives. So frankly, it's a very good snapshot on the candle itself, even though sometimes strength and throw can be a little bit harder to judge. But I really feel though, in terms of fragrance performance, that I have a pretty good sense of these, and they are nothing to write home about. Kent, Candle Channel, he was very, very critical, and I thought overly so. I thought he was probably honest that probably the only ones that were worthwhile were Bourbon Bonfire, Rosemary Apple Rita, and maybe Vineyard Harvest. But when he said that he was getting a throw of 1, 2, or 3, I questioned that. When he said disparaging things like, I don't want to pay money for a candle that performs and smells like a supermarket candle, I questioned him on that too. I thought it was like overly critical. But now that I have burned these, I think he's actually correct. These perform and smell like supermarket candles. They are very generic. They're not anything innovative. And they definitely don't live up to the standards of Kringle candle. They just don't on any level. All right, so let's take Bourbon Bonfire first, which is the one that I like. I was wild about it on the cold smell because gosh, it smells beautiful. Unfortunately, upon being burned, it loses some of its brilliance and it does smell a bit generic. Would I repurchase it in a larger format? Yes, I would. But it would have to be on sale considerably and it would have to be in a 3-wick. And they do have a 3-wick with a pattern like thing. And it's not, unfortunately, this lovely picture. It's kind of this weird, like almost campfire-esque Boy Scouts kind of motif. I don't love it, but I do think that with this strength and throw, like you need to not mess around and get the 3-wick. So without further ado, the notes on Bourbon Bonfire are top notes, golden aged rum, Tennessee whiskey, mid notes, cinnamon sticks and crushed clove, base notes, cedarwood, sandalwood, smoked vanilla bean. This is in the same genre as Palo Santo from Bath & Body Works, and it is lovely. It's a lot of dry wood. So the wood they're saying here is cedarwood and some sandalwood. But honestly, it's predominantly a wood candle. Like so much so that, like I said, it's very much in the genre of Palo Santo. I'm almost surprised that the only wood here that's listed is cedar wood because I'm expecting to see, frankly, a lot of other woods listed. It's a beautiful wood smell. It's dry, it's warm. I am not getting a whole lot of booziness. And they've obviously in these notes trying to emphasize the fact that this is some sort of boozy candle. It's not really. So forget the golden aged rum and the Tennessee whiskey. Don't come out even when being burned. In terms of the spices, they say clove and cinnamon. I'm not getting a whole lot of spice. But frankly, that wood smell is so intense that it may be there and it's just being overwhelmed by the wood. Sandalwood and smoked vanilla bean. I mean, vanilla might be in there, but again, it's going to be overwhelmed by your wood. It's really just a beautiful cedarwood sandalwood. And there is something kind of funky. And I'm almost surprised that patchouli isn't listed here because I do think there is something very incensey / musky about this particular candle that goes kind of in a patchouli direction. And it must be the cinnamon sticks and the clove up against the sandalwood and cedarwood. That's pretty much all you've got. But instead of it coming across as like a spicy candle, it comes across as an incense candle. And I know there's very little difference between those two, but what I'm trying to say is that there is something very like earthy and herbal about the way that those spices come across. So I would call this Palo Santo 2.0. If you're a fan of the Bath & Body Works Palo Santo candle, that candle is fantastic. It has a very strong wood smell, but it also has a lot of musk in it. It's kind of the same musk note that's in Pumpkin Bonfire, for instance. It's beautiful. This one is a little funkier than the musk that's in Palo Santo. Just a little bit. And it does go very like autumn, very earthy. But if you are a little patchouli shy, but love the Palo Santo candle, I would really highly recommend this because I just think it's close enough to that Bath & Body Works candle and it's just a little bit earthier, a little bit more something. Can't explain it. It's a little bit more masterful than that Palo Santo candle. Unfortunately though, upon being burned, a lot of that brilliance seems to go away, and I don't know why that is. The throw was moderate. I would say it was in the 6 realm when I would have liked it to have been 7 or 7.5. It was in the 6 realm, and for some reason when it was burned, it just kind of went a little bit generic. it went a little bit like hippie store / craft store, incense store a little bit. And while the wood smell was definitely there, it just seemed a little more canned and muffled than I wanted it to be. For that reason, I would repurchase it, but I would only repurchase it on a discount and with the 3-wick to hope that that really bumps things up. So this was the best of the lot. And I think in a stronger collection and a stronger range of candles, it would be a good candle, but I don't know that it would necessarily be a standout the way that it is in this collection, where I think it's probably far and away the best candle they've got. All right, so let's go to Rosemary Apple Rita. Looks like this. I was really hoping for this one because I'm an herbal girl, so I was hoping for a really beautiful rosemary. The notes on this one is red apple slices, sweet pear, and juicy peach in your top notes. Mid notes, cider accord, orange, sugared rosemary sprigs, and base notes, cinnamon sticks, and sugar crystals. I'm actually getting the peach. This is a very sweet apple, very sweet. And that peach and pear are really giving it more of a unvarnished sweetness that's not quite as tart as, frankly, you might like in a fall apple candle. I personally am not getting hardly any herbs at all. And I want there to be a caveat here because I'm an herbal girl. So my continuum for an adequate contribution of herbs is probably a lot stronger than most people's. So I really want to smell the rosemary, and I can't smell it like hardly at all. Now a lot of people have been like, that's the perfect amount of rosemary. They hated the grapefruit rosemary candle because they thought there was so much rosemary in it. I personally wasn't getting a whole lot of rosemary in that grapefruit rosemary candle. But for people who don't like herbs, this might be a good amount of rosemary, which is to say practically none. There is about as much rosemary in this as there was charcoal in the apple charcoal candle from Bath & Body Works. But actually, I would say even less, because this Bath & Body Works candle does have charcoal in it. It does have something smoky a little bit on the bottom. And I actually think it comes out a little bit stronger in here than the rosemary does in here. And what is more, the apple here is brilliant. And the strength and throw, from what I've heard from most all reviewers, is fantastic for this one. Like, this is in the 7 to 8 realm. Easy. This one was like a 5. 5 might be generous. 5 on this. So I would say if you want it, make sure you get it in the 3-wick, and make sure you're not an herbal person, because I don't know you're going to get a whole lot of herbal in this. You just kind of get a very sweet, peachy kind of apple that smells fairly authentic. But does it smell autumnal? I mean, I would burn it in September. It's an apple. That's all I can say about it. But it's just, frankly, it's not special enough. And for my money, and frankly, for my aesthetic, I would rather go with something like this. So that's Rosemary Apple Rita. Let's go to Leaf Peeper. Leaf Peeper is here. Look at that stunning label. Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. It does remind me a little bit of Sanctuary too, with that like beautiful, like burnt orange red. Man, gorgeous. Okay, so Leaf Peeper is top notes, crisp green apple, peach. Oh, I apologize. Rosemary sweet pear. Oh, it is the same. Okay, I apologize. I've like listed these like in conjunction with each other, and I feel like I'm reading the same thing, but I wasn't. I did read you the rosemary ones. The leaf ones are crisp green apple, peach slices, and dewy greens. So actually similar to Rosemary Apple Rita. Like you've got that peach note for some reason. Mid notes, clove, cinnamon, and autumn acorns. Base notes, lakeside woods, tonka bean, and musk. This, you've got some spice, okay? This one is autumn spices. So this one feels autumnal in a way that like the Rosemary Apple Rita one does not, for sure. And it's very nice, but nice is about all that I can say for it. I actually think that on cold sniff, you get a lot more autumn spices in this. I'm not getting a whole lot of apple, but when you burn it, the apple does come out. And I would say that the apple is like the biggest part of it. So you hold for the apple does come in. Because people were saying that this was like a dupe for Bath & Body Works Leaves. And I thought to myself, isn't Leaves like super apple forward? This doesn't smell apple forward. But then upon it being burned, the apple does come out. So there's that. But this is very generic, and it's even more generic upon being burned. It just goes very Michael's craft store, and not in a great way. I kind of question that this is a dupe of Bath & Body Works. I mean, I think it is a dupe for Bath & Body Works Leaves, but I think Bath & Body Works Leaves smells different because I don't actually love Bath & Body Works Leaves. And when I smell it, it's a lot. I don't know. I know that there's, in the Bath & Body Works Leaves candle, like there's nothing listed like eucalyptus, but isn't there some sort of cool note in Leaves? Am I wrong? I don't know. It is apple forward, but I feel like there's a coolness that is not in here, which makes that Bath & Body Works candle a little off-putting for me, but at least more interesting. This one is just kind of a generic apple spice kind of candle, and that's the way it burns as well. I can't recommend this, and the throw on this was not good. I mean, it was in the 5 region. Again, it's not good. I do recommend this one, and I just hauled this, and I mentioned it, and I just want to sound it out to you, because I think this is in the same genre. It's the same kind of dupe. This one is Fall Leaves from Root Candle, and this one is all of the boldness that this one is not. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. I may send it back because it's just not my vibe personally. But if you're interested in this kind of a candle, this genre of a candle, this one, I can almost guarantee you is going to be more successful in this one. I mean, even just smelling it cold, you can tell that the strength and throw on this is about double what this one is. Double. And I am taking into consideration that this is a daylight and this is like a larger vessel. But if you want kind of a Bath & Body Works-esque, this is a beeswax. It's 3 wicks. It's how many ounces? 12 ounces? Yeah. I would say either buy Bath & Body Works Leaves or get this. But I wouldn't mess around with this leaf peeper. It just is not, it's not remarkable. And the throw is really, strength and throw is lacking on it. So, I mean, it's your money. Do what you want with it. God bless. The label is gorgeous, but I wouldn't pay that kind of money for a label. It's not about the label when it comes down to it, right? Okay, last two are Vineyard Harvest and Pinot Noir, which are actually fairly similar. They're definitely in the same genre. So here's the Vineyard one. I was super intrigued about this because Kent very like notoriously called it the throw-up-y one. He said it smelled like vomit or whatever. And then he backtracked on it, and it ended up being one of the stronger candles for him. And I agree with him. It's not my candle, but of the 4 here from this line, I would say that Vineyard Harvest and Pumpkin and the Bonfire candle were the 2 that were like, okay, like I can see why these are like points of view, even if they're not your point of view. Like, yeah, all right. They more than exist. They have like a reason to exist. It may not be the most mind-blowing candle in the world, but some of these other ones were just like, when he said supermarket candle, like I kind of agree. There's just nothing special about this, nothing. And then on top of it, the strength and throw is bad. Like I just don't get it. Oh, all right. Vineyard Harvest. Top notes, raspberry cassis, which is basically currants, and apple. Mid notes, damask plum. That's like a, damask is like a fabric. Is there a damask plum too? Or are they just like being poetic? Rose and cinnamon. Base notes, cedarwood, vanilla, sugar, and caramel, and nothing will prepare you. Oh, by the way, these notes, at least the ones for these candles, are pretty good. Like, we didn't have any like really embarrassing moments. Okay, let's tally up some points for that on the pro column. Thank you, Kringle, for giving us like reputable scent notes. But these scent notes will not prepare you for what it is that you're going to smell. Whoa! Okay, so it's just such a candied, like artificial kind of grape. So people have been saying like blow pop. Blow pop. I actually even think Jolly Rancher's grape is like a little bit more sophisticated than this. It is very cloying in the candied realm. And it is kind of a grape smell. It may be tempered with a few more berries so that it's not just completely grape Kool-Aid, but it's in that genre for sure. And I think that the other notes here, so the rose, the cinnamon, the cedar wood, the caramel, are all contributing, but they are actually more than the sum of their parts, which is to say that you're not going to smell it and be able to pick out cinnamon, cedar wood, caramel. They have blended and pureed all together, and they now represent something more. The only discernible scent note that you can really pick out is that like blow pop, like grape note. But then there's another dimension to this, which is interesting. That's all I can say. It's interesting. Nobody's going to be able to describe it to you. You just have to smell it. But for those of you who understand the frame of reference, I can tell you what this is a dupe for. And I can't imagine it's intentional because I don't think it's mainline in the United States. There is a Brazilian shoe company called Melissa. Okay, it's a Brazilian shoe company. They're all vegan and all of their shoes are plastic jelly shoes. And they're not just the traditional 70s, 80s, 90s jelly shoes that girls wear to like the public swimming pool. But they are actually like, here's one, for instance, because I got into it. I was like into this as a genre at a certain point. They actually have like serious shoes that are jelly material. And Melissa, one of the things that they're most known for is that they infuse all of their shoes with a fragrance scent. And this fragrance scent is almost exactly what this candle is. The company calls it a bubblegum scent, but it's a very fruity bubblegum. It's not a traditional bubblegum, but it's very like fruity. Yes, it's candied. And it's mixed with this like plastic smell too, or rubber smell from the shoe itself. And it's kind of has a cult following. At one point, they even put out a perfume of their shoes. Like, this is the Melissa smell or whatever. When I was burning this, I walked into my bedroom and I was like, why does this candle smell like plastic? And then I realized it smells like Melissa shoes. That's why I'm associating it with plastic. I don't know that it necessarily smells like plastic. There's something like kind of deep and musky, and there is something deep and musky about this particular bubblegum scent. And if you haven't smelled it, I know that sounds like the most bizarre thing in the world. But all this goes to say, it is a certain point of view. It is bold. I got a pretty good throw on this. I mean, this was a strong 7.5. I could see how this would be an 8 in your house if you had a larger candle. So it's definitely bold. It's weird. And it's candied, and it's bubblegum-like. It's all of those things. This is not an authentic, like, vineyard kind of smell, which for some people is going to be a misstep. For me, it is. I wouldn't have a candle burning like this. But there are women who seek out the Melissa perfume that the shoes are infused with. There are people that like this scent. You might be one of them. The only thing I can say is buy a daylight and burn it. See if this is something that you want to do. Bath & Body Works has a candle, Harvest Pomegranate. Actually, here's a picture of it. And they may have had it around for a year, maybe new, I don't know. But when I smelled this Harvest Pomegranate candle in the store, I was like, I think this is actually what Kringle meant to do. And it makes more sense as a Harvest Vineyard kind of candle. It is much more unproblematically berried and jammed. And yes, it is a little bit on the artificial side, but not as artificial as this. For me, this is a miss. I don't know what it is that they were after. I mean, if they don't want their candle to smell like a bubblegum shoe, I'm not exactly sure what it is that they were trying to accomplish with this candle. And the only thing I can think is that all of their inputs made sense, but then when the outcome was just not, it's really weird. So they should have gone back to the drawing board and been like, well, whatever this smells like, it doesn't smell like an authentic Vineyard Harvest. I don't know what else to say about that. Pinot Noir is actually very similar. I actually like Pinot Noir a little bit better. This is much more obviously and straightforwardly a berry. It's actually a little bit tart, like a cranberry. So it's good. It's like berried, graped, cranberried. The notes on this one are aldehydes, apple, green, mandarin. Mid notes, citrus, Hesperides. I don't know what the Hesperides is. Muguet, which is lily of the valley, raspberry, vanilla, and violet. So you've got raspberry, apples, citrus. I don't even see any berries. The aldehydes may be berry-like, but this is actually more reputably vineyard grape-like and berry forward than in a more authentic way than this one is. It's still candied and artificial. To be honest, it kind of reminds me of like maybe what Cranberry Woods for Bath and Body Works, like a better version of Cranberry Woods than the one that's currently out. But it's still generic. It's still very like Michael's craft store, but I would say more authentically berried and wined like a wine, like jammed fruits and berries. So if you kind of want one of these wine-ish candles, I would go with Pinot Noir over Vineyard Harvest. But maybe you'll be one of those people who just really likes that weird Vineyard Harvest smell. I'm sorry that I didn't have more positive things to say. I really am. It probably hurts me more than you would think just to be like honest like this, but I have to be honest. This was an atrocious fall release. It just was. And the best candle of the bunch, Bourbon Bonfire, would be a decent candle in a more strong collection like the one that we had last year. And it may not even be the standout. But in this set, it's the standout. And I think it's the best one that you can do. All of these are available, and I can't recommend them. But like I said, it's your money, you know, and it's your decision on this. And if you want to spend money on these candles, that is entirely your prerogative. And I hope against hope that your experience of these is better than mine was. I really do. Like maybe your mileage will vary. Maybe there will be inconsistency in the performance of these, which generally is not a good thing, but you would rather take inconsistency than like consistently bad. So I hope for your sake that they perform better, and I'll definitely keep watching because maybe I've missed something. I will absolutely go back and repurchase if overwhelmingly it seems like certain candles just ended up in the long run being better than their initial impression right off the bat. But for me, I would buy from Bath and Body Works this year. I just would. Or burn your candles that you may have on hand. Homeworks doesn't look like a good bet this year. Neither does Yankee. It's gonna be a rough fall for us. We'll get through it. If you've got a back catalog of candles, I would get those out, you know? I don't burn Goose Creek for a whole host of reasons, but maybe Goose Creek will come through this year. I don't know. And maybe Halloween will actually, there were a lot of candles in that Halloween release that were less spooky and more just generically like fall-like. So maybe many of those Halloween candles, if you can deal with the packaging, with the marketing, with the spookiness, maybe a few of those will end up being the fall release that we were cheated out of this year. But like I said, I'm already super excited and marking my calendar for next year because I have a feeling Kringle is going to knock it out of the park, and I am already here for it. I'll link all of these candles down below if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next one.